Oh, I was going to say Friday night. Then I had to stop and think, is it Friday night? And it
It
is
is.
Friday night.
It is Friday night. And it's Friday night and I've been working like a dog all week, and I know you have been too. So this is so good. We can get to talking some triathlon. I actually have not trained all week.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we talked about being sick last week. I don't think we didn't say it, but I had COVID last week.
Hmm.
And then I actually did I'm been having issues with my hip for
Hmm.
a long time. And I actually did a PRP injection uh,
Okay.
on Tuesday, and it's been dang sore ever since. And
Oh,
I'm not actually supposed to run or ride for a week
yeah, yeah.
after. Actually, so I can't say I didn't train all week. I swam yesterday with just a pull buoy, just a couple thousand.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, just I had to do something, but been doing a lot of walks with Cosmo. So
Oh, there you go.
he's been getting some serious walks. We did an hour this morning, and then after this, we'll probably get out and do another hour.
Oh,
It's weird not to bike and run, and it's like weird.
it's amazing how much time you end up having when you take out that training and you don't replace it with anything. And all of a sudden and this is I've experienced this last few months is sit around on a Saturday morning and you're like,
What do I do?
yeah, this is it's a little awkward, but
The question I have to ask for you then is your garage clean?
is what?
The garage, is it clean?
Oh, no, no. I am not a garage cleaning kind of guy, so my garage is always well loved.
It's so funny because like that's the thing I was telling myself. Oh, I'm not going to train this weekend, so I can clean my garage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I never seem to. I'll clean
yeah.
my workbench like when I'm
Oh,
working
yeah, yeah,
with my
yeah.
bike, but the rest of it is still a mess.
I stuff just accumulates. I don't know how it happens, but I do the same thing. I'll clean off the work area, but then I then it will just all of a sudden it's cluttered up again.
Yep, it happens so quick.
Mm.
So yeah, so let's talk about cycling tonight. So last week,
Yeah.
in the last 2 weeks, we talked about running myths,
Hmm.
and you said, "Hey, let's talk about cycling myths." And I
Yeah.
was like, what a great topic. And then you found a couple of articles, and we're going to kind of bounce back and forth on some of those articles today. If that mean, obviously it's okay with you. Hopefully, it's okay with everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
No,
lot of there's a lot of cycling myths out there.
well, I love this theme of myths
Yep.
and talking about them because myths are, a lot of times there's a basis for it in terms of some anecdote, and then that anecdote sometimes gets transformed into some recommendation, and then you go down this path, and all of a sudden someone takes a step back and says, "Hey, wait, where's the science behind this recommendation?" And
Yep.
lo and behold, there isn't any. And
Yep.
it doesn't just happen in running and cycling. I mean, it happens in hydration recommendations. I mean, there were hydration recommendations that were coming out that were not based on science.
Yep.
The work that we're doing with looking at core temperature swimming in warmer water, there's no data on why the high temperature for not wearing a wetsuit, why it's there. There's actually no empirical data on it, and that's what we're trying to fill that gap with. So this is sort of fun to look at these myths that we find on these different web pages and then go through them.
Well, and then I read through these, and some are myths, but some have some truth to them,
That's right. That's right.
right? And that's the thing with a myth is oftentimes it is based in truth,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is not exactly what it is. So we're just going to kind of pick a few and go. So why don't you pick the first one you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, which list did you want to start with?
Well, we can go with either. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
You can go jump back and forth.
Oh, I'll do this one because we've talked a lot about this, but I think it's worth continuing to talk about. This is from trainerroad.com.
Yep.
5 cycling myths busted and
Yeah.
the truth behind. So the myth number one that they're listing is base training needs to be all long, slow, easy rides.
Yeah.
That's an interesting myth because like you said, there is some evidence for you want to have that volume at low intensity.
Yeah.
But I know you especially don't prescribe to 100% low intensity.
But base training is different.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying base training,
Yeah.
right? So I think base training can be long, slow, easy rides. It depends on how you define base.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Because I think that if you have an athlete, for example, that doesn't have a race for 4 or 5 months and you want to build an aerobic engine and they've got the time to do it and they enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
it can be. So this is very clickbaity to me because it says all.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I always hate all. Like I always tell my students when they take like a certification exam or something, if something says all, it's always no, it can't be. Because nothing's ever all.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing that I'm going to throw this one out there too, and no offense to the guys at Trainer Road, it's a good Nevada company. I think they're out of Reno, but they make them. Their whole training plans are based off of interval-based training.
Yeah, right. So there's a little bias there.
So they can't sell a training plan that just like, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to ride 30 hours this week of all base.
Yeah,
all low. But that being said, we've talked about this many times, John, is there are more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
And can you increase your aerobic system by doing more intense stuff? You absolutely 100% can. Right? Because, and we talked about this many times, if you do a 1 minute effort, it's aerobic.
Yeah.
Because aerobic means you're utilizing oxygen. Right? Try not to breathe for a minute.
No one holds their breath.
As you're doing this, right? So there are many pieces to the aerobic system. There's many factors that go into it. And so that being said, I 100% agree with this myth that it doesn't have to be all long, slow, easy rides. I would just say, personally, I'd say a majority needs to be.
Right. Well, I really like how you started talking about this and defining the base training phase. And I like that definition. What you said, 4 to 5 months with no racing. Yeah, that's a great period. And for us here in Southern Nevada, that would be, do we even get 4 to 5 months off?
It depends when, right? Because there's a lot of people that finish their season in October.
Yeah.
And they may not start again until May.
Yeah.
Right? So then you got like 7 months in there.
December, January, February,
or you missed November.
March, and we're already hitting some races in March at that point. So
and you can, right? Like that's the thing. We could, I mean, really theoretically, you could have no off season.
Yeah, right? That's right.
Which race up until December in California. And if you really wanted, you could go to Florida and you could race in January.
Yeah, that's right.
You could. But I think most people prescribe to this kind of on season, off season.
Yeah.
And the thing that I want to add into here, and we've talked about this before as well, is why you don't want to do a lot of intense stuff, especially during that time, is your body actually does need recovery, right? And that too much intense work stresses out so many of the other systems within your body, not just the aerobic system. But when we've talked about the endocrine system before, we talk about the musculoskeletal system and getting tendinopathies. There's just a lot of other systems that ultimately can be stressed during that time. There's an old myth. I don't know. This is probably not even a myth, but have you heard of this in pro cycling? Is like a pro cyclist is not allowed to use their big ring for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So this was, I don't know how it is now, but I was reading some stuff was talking about, it was like more like this, and maybe this is like 70s, 80s, and even to the 90s, is like, hey, pro cyclists literally were not allowed for like a 6-week period to switch it into the big ring.
Right.
And so that forced them to basically go easier. Now that would be the all, right? And I don't prescribe to all either. I think even during the base period, doing some sweet spot training, we've never really talked about what sweet spot training is.
No, we haven't.
Yeah. Sweet spot is basically just below your threshold. So doing some sub-threshold work, I think, is a good idea. But I also prescribe to the off season as a time to have fun. Right. So, hey, John, let's go for a ride. Let's go for a 60-mile ride, and we go up Potosi, and we push a little bit up Potosi, then we come back down, and we go somewhere else, and we push a little bit. And because I think there's a lot to be said for the mental side at that point too, and resetting your brain almost that, hey, this is actually fun.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right. So But so I like that. I like how, you're approaching this base training, which, and we don't always have to put a time on that, but it's time where you're not really racing, but you're prepping to get ready to start your training program. And I like that. I like how you're also looking at this from, a practical perspective, and, still, adding in a lot of long, slow, easy rides, but then having some mixture. And I'll tell you that, well, this, the research out there on different training programs, there's a lot of evidence that the high intensity, short duration does provide a strong training stimulus.
Yeah.
And this is good to know because maybe you don't have time for that long, slow ride, but you could fit in a shorter ride that has some higher intensity, and that would still contribute to your base training. The trick is not doing too much
Yep.
of that high intensity.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I don't know if you've ever come across people like this, but I've come across a few people in the triathlon world that are relatively new to triathlon. Like, oh man, I used to do spin class 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And then I started doing triathlon and it crushed me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if you did high intensity training 5 times a week, let's say, I don't know, the average spin class might be, 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
How come you put them on a bike outside and it crushes them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So it can't be, it's got to be both.
Right.
And, it's interesting because the next myth on that one says training is only productive when it's hard.
Yeah, right.
Right. And once again, it's like, I think this is clickbaity, right? Because the first one says, well, it can't all be easy. The next one is, it shouldn't all be hard.
Can't be hard either.
And we've talked about this many times, variety.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, John, but because honestly, we've never really talked too much about your training and how you approach it. Like, if you were to say what percentage, just in general for the year, you'd say is hard versus easy on the bike. Let's say on the bike only. What would you say?
I am probably 80 to 90% easy to moderate. And it has changed during this COVID period because I have not been commuting it as much. And I thought about, these myths and how my training now is quite different. Well, right now my training's not really existing, but I'm trying to make my way back to find some fitness. But prior to COVID and in the early phase of COVID, my training program changed quite a bit because I took the commuting out. And that commuting really ended up being my interval training, especially for cycling. And really what I was left with is more higher percentage of long, slow, easy to moderate rides. And so I think that actually hurt me over that period of time. I think I needed that higher intensity, and I just naturally built it in to my commute as trying to make that next light, or trying to get in the right spot in the lane, and trying to get in front of cars, or getting behind a car, whatever way it was. And you're doing a lot of speed adjustment, which would be a higher intensity.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Especially talking about the next one, training is only productive when it's hard. That's a really, this is a really interesting one, because for the majority of people, and you look at some survey data, they talk about this, is and it's not even just survey data, we can actually look at training logs. A majority of athletes, especially not professionals, so like age group athletes, probably do spend too much time in hard.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Not excessive, not excessive, not easy, just right in the middle. And, I know, like, when I started training, I fell a victim to this, and I can go back into this victim feeling as well, where, you got to feel like you accomplished something. Right. And so the long ride on a Sunday, it shouldn't punish you to the point where you have to, basically the rest of the day is you're done.
Yeah, right.
You do your 4-hour ride, and then you have to literally get on the couch and don't want to do anything for the rest of the day. That probably meant you went too hard.
Yeah, right.
Right. Now, there are times when you can do that, but if your goal is to gain aerobic fitness, it doesn't have to be that hard. The benefits actually are the same in that 4-hour ride if you go at 50% of your FTP or 60% of your FTP. or 70, the
Yeah.
aerobic benefits are basically, at least with the research, is very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And and we fall into that trap, really. Humans do.
Oh,
Right?
and in triathlon, it's very, people are very susceptible to it. I always talk about, train as hard as you want today so you can train again tomorrow.
Yep.
Because, and you and I are big advocates of consistent training is going to get you your best fitness gains, as opposed to going out and doing a hard session and then having to take a day or 2 days unplanned off. I mean, you've got to work it in so that you have that right intensity, but you're also hitting that consistency. No, totally spot on.
It's interesting, we started this conversation talking about me walking with Cosmo.
Yeah, right.
If I
That's
walk
true.
2 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
that's aerobic training.
Yeah, right.
My heart rate probably is not going to get above 90
Mm-hmm.
on those walks,
Yeah.
but it's stimulating the aerobic system.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I look at that as, well, that's what I can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as, I don't look at it as, oh man, I should be running this.
Yeah, right.
Because my body is not able to do it right now. So
Mm-hmm.
then I can still gain an awful lot, or not, so not even gain, not lose as much during this
Right,
time.
right.
And it's something that, in the world of athletic training and dealing with injured athletes, getting them to understand that they can do things. They might not be able to do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we've got a swimmer, for example, whose shoulder is injured. Well, you can't swim.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what else can you do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Can you jog? Yeah. Could you get on a bike? Yeah. And I see this all the time, even at UNLV with the swim team, is they get an athlete that has an injured shoulder, and it's like, okay, well, you can just do your shoulder rehab, and we'll get you in the water and you can kick.
Mm-hmm.
Kicking is nice, but 3 hours of kicking a day is probably going to cause you some problems.
Mm-hmm.
But get them on a bike.
Yeah.
Have the stationary bike in the pool.
Yeah.
And when the team is going, they should be riding a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Or doing something else that is going to basically prevent the aerobic system from it's not really atrophying, but from declining.
Yeah. And I think it keeps your placeholder for exercise in your day.
Yeah.
So, the other part that I want to add on this myth of the cycling always needs to be hard is, the show Biggest Loser. At first I was a big fan of it because it was amazing to see the transformations that these, contestants underwent. And it was just phenomenal. But the problem was that they were always showing exercise as being hard. And that's not sustainable. You've got to have a good plan to be able to be consistent over a long period of time, not just a 15-week, not just a 10-week period of time. So
you set yourself up to fail if you do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or you'll see a little bit of, you'll see some success in the beginning, but then it just won't, it's not sustainable. You can't maintain that type of high intensity all the time. And so, yeah, so I think that's a good myth. Now we got a couple of comments here that were related to this. So
Awesome.
We've got Luigi saying the wind makes you stronger. And I think that's a reference to Sunday's going to be a windy day. So time to get some strength on and some good bike handling skills on Sunday. Find your weakness and focus on that. And this is sort of a fun one. Shave your legs, you will ride faster.
That's one of the myths.
Is that on one of our myths?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, we'll get to that one. And then Bob also talks about make training easy, train today so you can also train tomorrow. The best way to get faster is to ride with people faster than you. These are diametrically opposing philosophies. Yes, that's a good point.
I couldn't agree more with that. So, I'm notorious for like inviting somebody out for a ride and then I crush them.
Yeah.
And I got to not do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Because well, I'm getting the aerobic side, but they're not, they're getting too much. And it's hard, right? Like if you ride with somebody that is better than you all of the time, you're going to be training too hard.
That's right. That's right.
And so I think you need to be very careful. Now, that being said, it's the same with swimming. I hate swimming people faster than me.
Yeah, but you got to pick your spots,
Yeah,
and Luigi does add a comment, take Sundays off so you can hammer Saturday with the fast group. And so, sort of a fun comment there. And you're right. I mean, you got to pick your spots, and there are times that you want to train with faster people,
absolutely. Yeah.
but not all the time. And and
Because
this,
it can also become very discouraging,
yeah, that's right.
right?
Right.
If you're constantly on the edge of, like on cycling, if you're constantly on the edge of being dropped
Yeah.
and you're just dying till the next break,
Right.
right? Next
Right.
time they stop, and or
Yeah.
you're praying for a red light because
Yeah.
you're being crushed.
Yeah.
That you're right. You pick your spots. You don't want to do that all the time because it can be very demoralizing and mentally can
Yeah.
be very, very difficult for you.
And you want to be exercising and training over a long period of time, and long is a year, 2 years, a decade, a
I, I,
lifestyle.
I love that you said that. When I've consulted with some people, first question I ask is this a long-term or a short-term thing?
Mm-hmm.
This is a short-term thing. Hey, I'm going to do Ironman, or I want to do an Ironman. I want to do a half Ironman in the fall. And so, okay, is that you're going to do that and then you're done?
Yeah.
Or is this going to be a lifestyle thing? And then the next year you're going to do something
Yeah.
else. And the next year you're going to do something
Yeah.
else. Because if your goal is one and done, the short, hard
Yep.
route is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You will be successful in the short term, but you won't be successful in the long term.
No, that's right. That's right. I love that. And my wife is actually really good at that. She had a 5-year goal that she set for herself. And I love that. I mean, that's thinking long term. And so now you plan out and you try not to rush it. It's still rushed a little bit, but because you start to see the improvements, and maybe you need to adjust the goals. But it is, you and I are both really big advocates of, I mean, this is a lifestyle, and you want to be able to do this for a long period of time. All right, what's the next myth here?
You need to ride the full distance of your goal event in training. This is
Oh,
so perfect for
yeah.
triathletes. It's
This
so
is
perfect.
this is where you and I fall on different sides of this one, but
I don't
yeah,
think we do. I don't think we do.
yeah.
I'll ask you. So in Ironman training, do you ride 112?
No, I don't. 100, but
I don't ride 100. I wouldn't say I have to ride 112. I think 100.
yeah,
Right? But that's more for me because it's mental. Like, oh, I did a
yeah,
century.
totally, yeah.
But so I think we fall on the same side on this one.
Well, and I do see a lot of people doing 120-mile prep ride, and I think that the advantages of doing those long rides is to figure out the nutrition,
Yep.
or the gear, or the position. And it's not necessarily an aerobic training session. It's more than that. It's testing things out. And I do think that there's some advantages to doing a long 120-mile ride, or something. I haven't done that, but I think there are some benefits that you can get. But it's mostly around strategy, and really getting a mindset that when you're at race day, it's a long day.
Let me ask you. I'm gonna have some fun with you. So you were awesome and came and helped me out the day I did the Everesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you, one thing I didn't do was do an Everesting to train for my Everesting.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
same with like 100-mile running race.
Yeah.
Like nobody goes out and does 100 miles so they can do 100 miles.
Well, that's an interesting point, because if we're on cycling, but if we look at running, and we talked about the run walk strategy really that Galloway really promoted, he did promote doing some longer than race day, longer than marathon distances. So that's interesting
Yep.
on that
Yep.
side, but
But I think that one was more about the time, right?
possibly, yeah, yeah,
So it's like, okay, you're going to be out there for this amount of time.
yeah.
Let's put you at it's not necessarily the distance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And now Bob adds a comment. Where'd the comment go? It was there. I saw it. But I think you and I were talking mostly about fulls. And on half, I almost always do more than 56.
I
Uh,
always do.
yeah, for cycling. So that's a really good point, that it does depend a
Although
bit on the
on my first one, I didn't.
what'd you
My
do?
first half, I did. I got to the point I could do 56.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't go further, I guess, but I did
Okay.
I did one ride, I think, of like 56. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can do it. And it meant a lot
Yeah.
to do that. But Yeah, and it's an interesting one. And I think even if we look into back to running, even at a marathon, most people don't advocate you training a marathon before a marathon.
That's your risk of injury is volume
Yeah.
on running. Yeah.
Now, I'm also an advocate of if you're doing 70.3 racing, that, and we've talked about this before, I like you to do it one bike ride about 5 hours.
Yeah, right. I like that.
You know,
That's a neat, because, and why 5 hours? Just so everyone knows.
because that's about the time you're going to be out on the course.
Yeah.
If, you know, around
Total
5
time. Yeah.
total time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can you exercise? And like you said, it's actually more about the nutrition. Like, can you figure out how to get enough nutrition to be out there for 5 hours, or if you're, you know, going to be a 6 hour for 6 hours, because it's a long day. And yeah, and once again, we talked about cycling being the least chance of getting injured.
Oh, I love it. That's good. All right. So good,
Okay.
good myth. And
I want to add one more.
yeah.
Okay. So what do you do for a double century cyclists?
Yeah, right.
Well, and why I'm saying this is there's a lady at the park. So when we walk Cosmo, there's a group of ladies that Marie normally hangs out with in the morning, and one of the ladies' sons, he's a cyclist, and he's going to do 3 double centuries in 5 weeks.
Right.
And he's done 2 so far. And I'm like, wow, 200 miles. Like, how long does that take him? And she's like, about 12 or 13 hours. I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm thinking his training leading into this was not doing 200-mile rides. And so then I started thinking, man, I should do a double century. And I know you have that in a bucket list to do 200 miles one time.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about, like, how would I train? Like, how would I, what would I do different to do a 200-mile day?
Yeah, right.
But one of the things I would not do is do 200 miles first. Well, because then, no, I guess I could, because then I've already figured it out. I've done it.
No, I love it. You know, and I talked. I can't remember if you and I talked with him together. And I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. He's training to break the world record for 7-day cycling.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about that.
I should message him and get him on as a guest, because I really have no idea how he trains, because he's trying to, in essence, do 300 miles a day.
Yeah, for 7 days in a row.
Super flat course is what he's doing, but still 300 miles a day, doesn't matter what course you're on. That's a legit day. So how do you do?
And I think you were alluding to this as well, John, is what about the shorter races? Right. So for a sprint triathlon, well, I would also advocate the exact opposite. For a sprint triathlon, you should be able to do more.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you should be able to ride longer than 12 miles.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you're at least a 20-mile ride for, prepping for a sprint. And Luigi adds always more than 56, all the way up to 90. And I know for a half, I'd be right around 80, 90 as my long rides. And that's why I like a half somewhere along the way of prepping for a full, because it really does get you into that volume in a nice gradual way.
Agreed. I agree as well. Okay.
All right. Next one is I
got it. You need to identify your natural rider type and use this to guide your training.
Yeah, I didn't follow this one. What did you catch on this one?
So what this is are you a time trialist? Are you a climber? Are you a sprinter? Are you, like, in cycling, a lead out guy?
Yeah.
Who are you? And so we haven't really talked much about this, like, kind of, this genetic typing of, are you fast twitch, slow twitch, fast, endurance? And this actually comes up a lot in triathlon, right? Is let's say you're the muscular, so we call it mesomorphic person, that's 215 pounds at 5% body fat, right? So you're this, and you're really fast. Like, you get this, you're like, I don't know, like the football linebacker kind of guy. So you're really fast. You got a lot of power. Should you train the strength, basically? And this is what Luigi said: train your weaknesses, right?
Yeah, right.
But as humans, we tend to gravitate towards our strengths. Right? If I'm a good climber, what do I want to train?
Yeah, right.
I want to train climbing, right? I'm probably not a good sprinter. If I'm a good time trialist, I'm probably not a good sprinter.
Yeah, right.
And so the myth here is, like, you should use this to guide your training you should use it to guide your training, but not towards that. I think you want to diversify away from it to get more well-rounded. Now, that being said, if you're a total aerobic person and you want to do long distance triathlon, stick with it.
Yeah, right. No, I like that. Yeah.
But you hear a lot about this in the cycling world.
Mhm.
About, like, the prototypical one was Peter Sagan, or is Peter Sagan, right?
Right.
Could he win a Grand Tour? This was the
Mhm.
talk especially when he was younger. And there was some pundits saying, oh yeah, he could, but he'd have to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah, right.
But is that 20, you're saying, but is that even possible for him? And then to have the power he needs to do that. And ultimately it probably isn't.
Mhm.
And we've talked about this before, is in sports, in endurance sports especially, you can't be everything.
Right.
You can't be the fast, super fast, and go super long.
Mm-hmm.
And the few that can are pro cyclists.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I like how you described this, because this myth is probably more built around cycling.
Yeah.
Because you think of your sprinters versus your hill climbers. I mean, you have your specialist. But in triathlon, I think what we end up doing is training for the course.
Yep.
And so I think that's probably a neat way to think about this myth, is to say, hey, we're going to do a hilly, St. George Ironman. Well, you got to train the hills. Oh, hey, I'm going to go do, a flat Ironman floor. You got to train for the flat and being in aero position. And so I think this is like, you started, there's some truth to this myth, but it doesn't all apply to triathlon. But I do think, training for the course is probably a good thing.
And then if you take it a step further, John, signing up for a race that goes to your strength.
Yeah, right.
And not everyone, well, a lot of people don't do that, and that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they just want the challenge, right? Like, hey, I want to do St. George because I'm not a good climber.
Yeah.
And I want to challenge myself. That's
Right.
awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, that's totally awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone, for example, we've talked about this before, if you want to qualify for Kona or the 70.3 World Championship, you should find a course that matches you, like for me, I specifically for 170.3 Worlds to try and qualify, I went to Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Augusta because it was a down river swim.
Yep.
And a hilly bike, sort of hilly bike, and a flat run.
Yep.
That to me is like, that works perfect. And it was hot.
Yeah.
And I always do really well in the heat.
Yeah.
So I purposely chose that. Now I've chosen other races that, I didn't like feel the pressure that I had to qualify, because I was like, oh man, that's going to be a challenge for me.
Oh, I love that. Now I tend to pick races that have good campsites next to it. So
yeah. and now, honestly, nowadays that I'm, getting a little older and a little wiser, and I just don't care as much about like maybe the qualifying. It's not like the thing. I want to go to races that excite me, that are cool,
right.
Cool places, I know we're off on a little tangent here. There was the Slow Twitch thread about Des Moines and Tulsa.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that they didn't have very many people sign up. Well, the truth of the matter is, I have no desire to go to Des Moines or Tulsa. I've been to Des Moines. It's okay, but it's not like it's not like going to Lake Tahoe or California to the beach, or even down into Florida. It's I want to go to races for destinations. You and I before COVID were talking about going to Roth.
Yeah.
And I still think we should do that.
Oh, we need to. We've got a group of people that are ready to go. It's just a matter of picking out the year. Okay, now I want to jump in here. Bob's got a nice comment that I think is related to this in terms of spinning circles. Is that a myth, or is that really that we spin circles? Now, I actually think this would be a good podcast to come back and do in terms of the shape of the rings that you have on your front chain ring. And I think that would be good. I need to go back and brush up on some of the research on this, but I think in essence, your pedals are always going in circles. It's just a matter of where you feel the force or the torque that you're generating around that axle.
Yeah, agreed.
And
I don't know, did that answer what he was kind of getting at? I think.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say I want to come back to this one.
Come back to that one.
Yeah, I think this would be. I think that would be a good topic to dive in a little deeper on some of the research.
And now I'll just throw this out. I actually switch back and forth. I've got some oval chain rings
Mm-hmm.
and I've got some circular, and
Yep.
I actually will switch back and forth, and I don't, honestly, I don't know which one's
Right,
best.
right, right. I don't think you can. So I think it is a myth, but I want to go back and brush up on the research. And Luigi adds in, it's crazy because the leaders in the Tour de France are great climbing and also great in time trialing. And I do think you get some overlap. I think the
They're not great
sprinters,
sprinters. They're
the
not great.
sprinters are just built a little differently. I mean, they're usually beefier, and so they obviously don't do well in the climbing and.
But the thing is you think about it in the Tour de France, or like the pro peloton, the time trials are usually quite short.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
20 minutes,
Relatively speaking,
30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the climbs that make the difference,
Mm-hmm.
are usually 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that amount of, basically what they're saying is those people that are going to win the Tour de France are good at that length, of being at threshold for that length.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Very rarely are those the same guys that can do a breakaway
Mm-hmm.
and be at threshold or just below threshold for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're not on that far end, and they're not on the far end of being able to sprint either. They're kind of like the middle guys.
Right.
And do both of those. It'd be interesting to see if they did like a triathlon almost, where you go, hey, go do a 56-mile time trial.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's a different thing to be just sub threshold for 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Good. I
All
love
right.
that you brought that up.
This next one is one that we've also talked quite a bit about, and this will be interesting. So myth 5, losing weight will always make you faster. And again, this is the always word here. It is sort of the test question curveball.
All right, I'm going to answer this with 2 words.
Right.
Are you ready? Do you know what these are going to be? Christian Blumenfeld.
Oh, yeah.
The best triathlete in the world right now.
Right now, yeah.
He's not a skinny guy.
No, he looks like a big guy.
He's a big guy, right? And who does more testing these days than anyone else?
Yeah, right.
He does. The Norwegians do.
Right.
I guarantee you they've figured out his ideal body weight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this one really is about what is the ideal body weight for you.
Right.
Not the lightest. Because the truth of the matter is, John, I could probably get down to about 110 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have no muscle.
Yep.
Right. I would be probably very sickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely wouldn't be very good on my bike.
Yeah. Well, and this is where we've talked about this mythical race weight, and that mythical race weight is usually way underweighted, and that usually means you're not healthy and you're not actually at an optimal weight for performance. So yeah. That's now I could stand to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds right now, but that's a different scenario than if I'm training all the time. I mean, you will find that weight that works for you. But I like what you've said before, is that you don't base anything on weight. You're really basing it on your feeling. Are you feeling correctly? Are you getting the workouts in that you want to get in? Are you hitting the types of numbers you want to hit? That's the most critical part. Now, weight for a bike, yes, that makes a difference when you're going uphill, because it does work against you. But this mythical idea of just keep losing weight and you're going to get faster, it's just not, that's not true at all.
It's pretty funny. I did this little research, self-research, N of 1 thing a little while ago. This was 2 or 3 years ago. Where I have this area where it's about a 3-4 minute climb. Mm-hmm. And it's a place that I go and do some intervals.
Right.
And I've done it many times. And, when I'm fit, I can do it around 3:10. Mm-hmm. Not so fit, it's closer to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was feeling pretty fit. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm bringing 2 bottles of water full. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do one with them, one without them, one with them, one without them. Didn't look at my did not look at my power meter, didn't look at anything.
Yeah.
Got back home, looked at the data. I couldn't tell which ones I did with and which ones I didn't.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Now that being said, maybe it's, hey, when I get the water
Yeah,
on there, I'm
yeah.
going to go a little harder.
Yeah,
But I was really trying to
yeah,
like just go and not think about it. And when you're
Sure,
like
right.
pushing to the limit,
yeah,
you know, and it wasn't the steepest hill. It's probably 5
Mhm.
or 6%. It's not,
Yeah.
it wasn't crazy. But it's just like, you know what? I think that we get really caught up in weight,
hmm
and we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. I love the fact that you mentioned about like how you feel.
hmm
And you know, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I don't weigh myself.
Right.
I've not weighed myself now in 5 years.
Yeah.
I literally have no idea. Now,
Yeah.
don't tell the people that the Zwift Racing League that. Okay. So we're supposed
Yeah,
to put
right,
in,
right.
we're supposed to put in accurate weights. And I guess. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I think I'm about this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. It's
Mhm.
how I'm feeling.
Yep.
Am I sleeping well? Am I able to train well? You know, that's what's more important to me. And you said it already, but it's if you're training regularly,
hmm
for the most part, you're going to find your body weight.
Yeah, right.
It's going to naturally happen.
hmm
Train regularly, eat when you're hungry,
Yep.
and for the most part, you're going to dial yourself in. You shouldn't be training and starving yourself.
No, and I think that's the key, especially with busting this myth, is you need to be fueled to get your workouts in, and you can lose weight if that's your goal. You can lose weight, but it has to happen over a long period of time.
Yeah.
It's not a 5 week window. It's not a 10 week window. You're looking at, it's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. And so, you try to have just a small deficit in calories over the course of a day, and lose that weight over a long period of time.
But I would even say, you know, trying to like drop a few calories per day or per week. I honestly think it happens naturally.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you're training regularly, unless you're really trying to gain weight,
hmm
which is actually hard to do if you're
Yeah,
training
right.
regularly, you will find you'll find your natural race weight. I really strongly believe that.
hmm
And I think that it is a myth that you need to have a sports nutritionist help you do this
Yeah,
if you're training regularly.
right, right.
That's and we're only talking about weight. I'm not talking about general health, right?
Yeah,
I think a
right.
sports nutritionist can definitely help dial in your
Yep.
health, and don't get me wrong, but if your goal is just, hey, I want to get to my race weight where I'm the best I can be as far as my weight,
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer if you train regularly and follow
You'll
the
get there.
cues of your body.
Mhm.
Now, I do think that if you under fuel during training, you
Mhm.
can gain weight.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's some evidence of this, is people, they under fuel because it's like, well, I'm training, I'm not hungry. And
Yeah.
then they get home and they destroy their fridge.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You know, especially if you're doing that sweet spot training, by the way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you go hard for an hour and you feel like, oh man, I'm just famished. You didn't take on anything in that hour or hour and a
Yeah.
half. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm famished. I'm going to eat a ton. And then you're devastated for the rest of the day
Mhm.
and you do nothing,
Mhm.
then you can gain weight.
Yeah, especially eating some of the foods that we eat after a ride, which is not always the best food, just best
Not
choices.
always. Not
All right,
always.
so Matt, I got to catch up on comments here. Matt says he mentioned in an interview, so this is for Blumenfeld, that his coach even tests his poo. And yeah, I mean, you test everything. If you're at that level, you want to know what's going in, you want to know what's coming out, because that is going to tell you obviously what the body's capable of absorbing and using and not using. So that becomes a really important part. But not a lot of us have access to being able to do
And
that.
just so you know, Matt, I have actually tested my own poo.
Yep.
There's a company called Viome that you can send your
Yeah,
poo
that's right.
to, and I've done it.
Mhm.
And you know it's love when you drop your wife off at work and you give her a package because there's a FedEx right near there, and say, hey, can you
Yeah.
FedEx this for me? And she's like, well, what's in it? And you're like, it's my poo. And she says, oh, okay.
That's right.
That's how you define love.
There you go. And that is to test your gut biome. And that's something that is caught on. And I think there's going to be more information over this next period, really trying to dial in what the gut biome is really about and how to manage it. And the way to figure it out is to do that. Just test what's coming out. All right. And Luigi says Lance Armstrong was 165 race weight, and that worked for Lance. Obviously, well, there's a little bit more there, but the more of that story, but
It'd be easier to find a race weight.
I'll leave that one. And then Luigi does add weight matters on Zwift, and he adds a laughing face. So, and I know that that's what you're referring to when you're talking about weight.
It actually is interesting on Zwift. I don't know if you've read any of this stuff. They're talking about, it creating eating disorders.
Creating what?
Eating disorders.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's
well, athletes in general
Yeah.
have eating disorders because of this.
But
That's right.
particularly on Zwift, because it literally is your weight.
Yeah, right.
And guys actually like not eating for they got to race and they have to make the weight
Mm-hmm.
because they published that was their weight, and then they're not
right.
eating for 2 days, and they're doing saunas and they're doing all these other things to drop the weight so they make the weigh in.
Yeah, no,
And- it's not.
this is a problem in wrestling,
Yeah.
UFC, boxing. Trying to make that weight can be dangerous, and same thing. I mean, if you're trying to make weight in triathlon, that's not the right way to go.
No, chances are you're going to be dehydrated.
Yeah, that's right. All right, you want to skip over to the other list?
Yeah, we'll do a couple on this one. So I'm on the first thing of this list, and the myth is cycling is expensive. Well,
It can be as expensive as you want it.
it sure can be expensive,
Yeah,
but once again, it doesn't have to be.
yeah.
And I think this is really good to talk about. Even triathlon, right?
Mhm.
You can get yourself an older triathlon bike, and the bikes themselves, honestly, have not really changed that much.
No, right.
Like, yeah, okay, there's some bikes that are faster than others, but realistically, you can do a triathlon on anything.
Yeah.
How many people do you know, John, that they did the first triathlon on a mountain bike?
Oh, we do the Las Vegas Tri Club Spotlight, and we hear that story all the time. My first race I did on a Schwinn Varsity.
Yep.
That was a 45-pound steel yellow bike, and it was great.
Now, to win your age group at Kona,
Yeah, right.
you're gonna probably need to invest a little bit of money in your bike.
Mhm.
That is what it is. It's unfortunate that it's gotten to that point. But even that being said, I saw some pretty impressive bikes at the World Championship which we were just at, that were older, but they were done up really nice.
Yep.
Probably you could put them together for $1,500.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were put together in a way that was going to be very aero and could get the job done, right? Not electric shifting.
Well,
So it can be done if you're smart.
I had some of my most successful racing on my $500 frame.
Yep.
I mean, and now I've got a frame that costs a little bit more, but again, I for a $500 frame, obviously you gotta have wheels and all the components and all that, but $500 frame, I had some of my most successful rides that way. So no, it doesn't need to be expensive. You can spend as much as you want,
Yeah.
but you don't need the electronic shifting.
Yeah.
You don't need, carbon fiber even. You don't need certain aero bars. You can make do with what you can make do, and it doesn't need to be expensive, especially, as an entry into the sport. You just need a bike.
Yeah, I agreed. And the funny thing is, I've gone to a lot of places and rented bikes, and even when I go to Canada, I ride my dad's bike.
Yep.
It's probably $100 bike.
Yeah. Right.
I get out and I'm working hard.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
does it shift as nice? No, not really.
Yeah.
But other than that, I still get a workout. John, you were in Hawaii. You rented the city bikes, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that was great. That was a good workout.
It's still a good workout. You might not go as far, per pedal stroke, but it's still a good workout.
I kept saying to Laura that I was picking the slow bike because she kept taking off from me and I couldn't keep up with her.
Did you have the e-bike version and didn't tell you?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Now, I don't think this myth is in here, but this is probably appropriate to mention the rule of N+1. So, in terms of number of bikes that
That
you
is not a myth. That is a
that is not a
fact.
myth. That's right.
So should we tell them what the N+1 is?
Yeah, where N+1 is. So whatever number of bikes you have, you always need one more.
You
So,
always have one more. And the funny thing is, I'm always looking for one more.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I know.
If
Mountain
the
bike, gravel bike,
if the
road
right deal
bike.
came around, like today, someone knocked on my door. Hey, I got this
Yeah,
bike. I got it at a storage auction.
yeah,
I thought it might be your size.
yeah.
It's the right
Oh,
deal. I'll probably buy it.
yeah. Oh, that's funny. All right, next one is, which one is the next one
I
here?
think it's about women's bikes.
Oh, yeah, okay, so myth, women need women's specific bikes. All right, there is a good market for women gear, and when are some bikes that are targeting women in particular. The big thing is having the right fit of the bike and having the right geometry for your body size. It doesn't matter whose bike it is. In fact, was it Blumenfeld's bike? Yeah, he had the experimental bike for
It
St.
is.
George.
Yeah.
I mean, back in my day, if you didn't have that top tube, we called that a women's bike. So
Yeah.
what makes it a man's bike because he's might riding it versus a women's bike. So it is a little bit arbitrary in that.
No, and you're absolutely right. And the one thing I'm going to add is oftentimes women bikes or female bikes, especially in triathlon, because I think you see them even more in triathlon. They don't make sense,
Hmm.
right? So you'll find a large women's bike with a short crank, because all the women's bike have a short crank,
Hmm.
or a large or small women's bike with a long crank.
Right.
And like these things don't make sense. It really is about the fit.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, like, I've got really short legs. I ride an extra small time trial bike. I'm 5'8",
Yeah. Right.
right? That doesn't, everyone say, oh, you're 5'8", you should be riding a medium. Well, it's not what's right for my geometry.
Hmm.
And I'm going to add in that if you're really serious about, especially a time trial bike, getting with a fitter who
Hmm.
knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
really knows what they're doing
Yeah.
before you even start looking for a bike. And it shouldn't be like,
Yeah.
oh, you know
That's
what?
true.
I'm going to buy that Cervelo. I'm going to buy that Canyon. I'm going to buy.
Mhm.
You should buy the bike that will fit your geometry
Mhm.
and the style of riding that you want to do.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, John, it's really hard to find those people.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. Right.
It's really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're spot on. I mean, the fit is the most important thing. And I like that idea of getting fit and then finding the frame that you can adjust. Now, a lot of the frames have enough adjustment, but not all of them, especially when you get into time trial bikes, because there's a lot more of the gear that's a bit limited in terms of what adjustments you can make. So I think that is great advice and a good myth busting. All right, so let's see what we've got next. We're almost to the top of the hour. Cycling is dangerous.
It is.
It is. I don't know why they have that in a myth, but other than, yes, we do take risks when we're riding out on the road. We take risks when we drive.
That's, I think, what they're getting at is life is inherently risky.
Yep.
Right. And, other things are risky too. Skiing is risky. Hiking can be risky.
Yep.
Rock climbing, very risky.
Hmm.
But as long as you do things that are you are appropriate, like you're wearing a helmet, you have lights, you've practiced, you can handle your bike. By the way, did you watch I'm pretty sure you didn't watch the sub 7, sub 8.
I did not. I didn't see it.
One of the benefits of having COVID on Sunday is I literally felt like doing nothing. And so I sat on the couch and I watched the entire thing.
Oh, nice.
And it's kind of funny. So I'm sure most people didn't watch it, but Blumenfeld was running with some Kenyans. So he had two different guys he ran with. And the Kenyans, when they're running, they looked so good, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, one of the Kenyans ends up getting on a bicycle beside him. And he's trying to give him water. And this bicycle's got speed play pedals, so really small pedals. And you could just see he's wobbling on the bike. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And I swear to you, within 30 seconds, he crashed.
Oh, Wow.
He crashed on this,
Yeah.
and he's going like basically running speed. So he's like maybe 10 miles an hour. He was
Yeah.
fine. He got back up, but he had poor bike handling skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that, I've tried to tell people that get into cycling is like, okay, have the right equipment, have the helmet, have maybe
Yeah.
some gloves on, lights, ride around your neighborhood.
Yeah. Right.
Do loops around your neighborhood, areas that you're comfortable with. The kind of the traffic pattern, if there is any traffic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Try and turn fat, sharp, try and lean each way, go
Yeah.
in the wind,
Yeah.
right? Those are the things that can make it less dangerous.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of scares me is, and I don't know how much you see this on your side of town, but it's become on our side of town at Red Rock, there's companies that are doing the e-bike tours,
Oh, okay.
and there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Right.
I'm going up Red Rock and I'm seeing these people that on the way up, they're okay because they're going relatively slow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But the descent,
Yeah.
I've seen some like the speed wobble.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like these people are not, they're not prepared for this because they don't have the bike handling skills
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So I think that's a critical piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, if bike handling skills is going to make the sport safer, and I like what you're talking about with knowing your route, and I think that's important is to pick the route that is safe as well. It has a bike lane, maybe it's a path, whatever it is. But yeah, there are ways to make it as safe as possible. Yes, there's a risk, but everything has a bit of risk.
Agree.
All right. I just lost my window here.
Okay, cycling enhances both muscle and bone density. That's the myth.
Okay.
So it's true. The myth is true. Basically, cycling, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, because cycling is not weight bearing,
Right.
you decrease bone density, and because cycling as far as a percentage of like your maximum rep for lifting weights also won't increase your muscle density or your muscular strength.
Yeah. Right.
It's not like weight training in that way. And so cycling, in my opinion, can be part of a well-rounded plan for you.
Yep. Yeah.
But especially as you get older, I think it's still imperative that you do other things that are weight bearing.
No, spot on, and it is because it's not a weight bearing activity. It's not going to promote bone density, but I think if all you can do is bike,
it's better than nothing.
It's better. Right.
But I would contend if you can bike, you could probably walk.
Mm-hmm.
And there is evidence that actually shows that walking increases your bone density more than cycling.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. It doesn't take, and this is where we did talk about some impact is good impact, and this is what we're really alluding to, is some impact will stimulate bone growth. It doesn't need to necessarily take a lot. And so that's a great point, that walking is a way to stimulate that bone growth.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we talked about that one with the running. We talked about running versus cycling when we did that. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's end on this next one.
Okay. Go ahead.
I can't believe this is here. Shaving your legs is for pros. That's a myth.
Come on. Do you want to know something interesting? So obviously, this is so good because it does. Shaving your legs does reduce drag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you and I have both shaved our legs.
Oh yeah.
For triathlon.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is John, I'm wearing calf sleeves now.
There's barely any skin showing.
And now you look at pro cyclists, same thing. They all have the socks because supposedly socks are more aerodynamic than even shaved legs.
Yeah.
So now I'm just shaving my knees.
Right.
So then I started thinking about, is this actually helping me?
No, that's funny. Yeah, you don't shave your arms, right?
Well, I've used the clippers on my arms.
And you don't shave the old stash.
I don't shave this though.
Yeah.
The ladies love that.
And it's so funny, you start talking with cyclists and you throw out the question, why do you shave your legs? and you give the different reason. Well, it's easier to clean out road rash and so forth and so on. But at the end of the day, it's just part of cycling, and it's not. There's not necessarily a benefit to it. I
It's
don't know.
part
I
of
guess.
it's part of swimming too.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, swimming. Well, swimming is a little different there. You want to reduce as much skin friction as you can because the water is so much more dense than air. And so there you might get a little bit of advantage
Yeah.
of shaving everything or wearing a suit that covers everything.
Yeah.
So
So that being said, the last little bit is trust us. There's nothing quite like that freshly shaven feeling.
yeah, that's right.
I got to be honest with you, like because I only shave for races.
I do too.
and
I
for
do
big
too.
races.
Yeah,
And it's weird. Like you get into bed that first night
yeah,
and you hadn't shaved your legs in like 5 months, and
yeah,
it feels weird, right?
yeah.
It's like, oh, this is not normal. This is, I don't have that little bit of fur.
Or jumping in the pool after you shave. It's
Ah.
amazing how much
So-
different that is.
It's such a weird feeling. So that being said, I think that if you're not going to wear long shorts and
Yeah.
high calf sleeves, and you're going to go bare-legged,
Yeah,
I think it would behoove you to shave your legs.
that's right.
And it just looks cool.
I love it. Well, that was fun.
It was fun. Thank you so much for another enjoyable Friday night, and thanks everybody for the comments.
Yeah, great comments that really helped guide our discussion. So thank you.
We should do a little poll and see how many of our listeners shave their legs.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, definitely add in the comments if you're a shaver or non-shaver. So, all right. Hey, have a good weekend training.
You too. Well, club race on Sunday, so we'll
That's right.
see you out there.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was supposed to be windy. I was gonna try and go and get a swim in. Is it because it's windy early?
That's going to be I don't know. We got to watch the weather report tonight and tomorrow, and then we'll get a little better sense. But yeah, that's the time. You're going to have a windy race at some point, and so if you can try it in this one, it's a good prep. So.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Cool. We'll see you on Sunday.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.